The $1 billion defamation lawsuit against CNN is going awful. For CNN, that is. In fact, things are so bad in the case that the judge told CNN's lawyer David Axelrod that his credibility with him was, quote, about none. I will show you that piece of footage here in a few moments. But just to give you an idea of how bad things are, the judge in the case threatened everyone in the courtroom with a $100 fine for every instance that they insult someone else. And in fact, the judge also told David Axelrod, again, CNN's lawyer, to apologize to Zachary Young, the plaintiff, the man, the victim in all of this, who is suing CNN for $1 billion. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the case, I'm going to do a flashback to June of last year. I released a video explaining it. I'm going to show you just 2 minutes of that video just so you have an idea of what this case is about, and just so I can put everything in context for you. CNN is facing a $1 billion defamation lawsuit thanks to Jake Tapper, who is co-moderating the presidential debate this Thursday night. This $1 billion defamation suit is considerably larger than the $787 million that Fox News settled with Dominion. The $1 billion lawsuit is being brought against CNN by Zachary Young, a U.S. Navy vet who helped people evacuate Afghanistan during Biden's disastrous withdrawal. So here's how the segment in question began.
In our World Lead today, the U.S. government, the Biden administration, says that as of last week, it had assisted in the departure of at least 377 U.S. citizens and 279 lawful permanent residents of the U.S. from Afghanistan since August 31st. Still, many Afghans who desperately want to flee Taliban rule, and Afghans who say their lives are at stake, they remain behind. As CNN's Alex Marquardt has discovered, Afghans trying to get...
Now, did you notice the chyron, the text at the bottom of the screen? While Jake Tapper was talking, the text talked about black markets, which of course implies illegal activity. And to make matters worse for CNN, the text mentioned exorbitant fees and no guarantee of safety, which implies a scam. Now, before I show you the rest of the segment, it's important to explain that this was intentional language. And the good news is, we have proof. You see, part of what makes defamation cases so difficult to win is that you actually have to prove and show malicious intent. Well, according to the official filing in Florida's 1st District Court of Appeals, Zachary Young was able to get his hands on internal communications at CNN and submit those as evidence. In those messages, CNN employees called him bag and asshole and remarked that they were going to nail this Zachary Young. Marquardt referred to him as Young and quipped, "It's your funeral, bucko." By the way, CNN's official response to all of that is that that was just journalistic bravado. So during Zachary Young's attorney's opening statement, he went through some of that evidence. He told the jurors what they could expect. But what I especially loved about his opening statement is he not only talked about the case, but talked about the context in which this case exists. And the context is really about the decline of corporate mainstream media. And it's that we need a functional, we need a morally ethical and just and truthful media for the sake of our constitutional republic, for the sake of our democracy. So here is Zachary Young's attorney. Here's just a moment of his opening statement.
You're going to have an opportunity to send a message to mainstream media. You're going to have an opportunity to change an industry. When I sit down in a moment, CNN's attorney is going to deliver their opening statement. You're going to hear from CNN's attorneys and their employees in this trial, and I imagine they're going to testify how it's CNN's mission to deliver the facts, how they care about that mission, and how there is nothing malicious about CNN's reporting. But when you hear what they say today in this courtroom, compare it to the words they used in their text messages and emails before this lawsuit. Compare it to what CNN said before they were facing a 9-figure verdict. When you make that comparison, when you consider the evidence, you decide who's telling you the truth and who's giving you theater. Thank you.
So part of the discovery process is allowing the teams to get evidence, to get access to assets that will help them make their case, that will help them prove the point that they're trying to make? Well, Zachary Young's team was able to get access to internal text messages, to emails, and even to videos. And it turns out that some of CNN's journalists are on the record even referring to all of this as, quote, theater. In other words, it suggests that they were aware, or they believed that there were holes in this, like, quote, Swiss cheese, yet they ran with the story anyways. So here is one of Zachary Young's lawyers talking about how, yes, that CNN journalist was talking about how it was all theater.
CNN felt that they had a sensational story that would drive ratings, and they didn't care about the truth. How do we know that? Because the emails and behind-the-scenes video footage show that CNN took pleasure in casting Zach as the villain for their hit piece. To use the words of CNN's lead reporter on the story, it was all theater. The week before this story was set to air, that same lead reporter texted his editor, "I'm going to nail that Zachary Young motherfucker." That editor texted him back, "I'm going to hold you to that, cowboy." And as they were putting the finishing touches on a hit piece that would upend Zach's entire professional reputation, that same lead reporter wrote to another colleague, "It's Zach's funeral, bucko." On November 11th, 2021, that story aired on Primetime Evening News with Jake Tapper. Corey? Zach's face was plastered across TV screens around the world, painting him as a black market operator who preyed upon desperate Afghans.
So defamation cases are notoriously difficult to win because we have a First Amendment, which not only guarantees the freedom of speech, but also ensures that we have a free press, which of course is very important for our constitutional republic. In order to win a defamation case, you have to prove several things. Number one, you have to prove that there was a false statement, but that's not enough. You have to prove that that false statement was made with malicious intent. And I don't know about you, but to me, all that evidence that was submitted, all those emails, those texts, the video evidence, to me that suggests that there was at least some intent. Maybe it's debatable whether or not it's malicious, but there was definitely intent in how CNN framed and structured this entire story. Well, on top of that, you also have to prove damages, and that's exactly what Zachary Young demonstrated when he testified on the stand. Not only did it affect his personal life, but his professional reputation, his ability to work in this industry has perhaps been ruined for the rest of his life. Here is Zachary Young's testimony.
It's devastating when you're labeled a criminal all over the world for someone like me. And my network, I'll talk more about it later, but these are people that, we refer to ourselves as quiet professionals. We don't look for recognition. We do very hard things in hard places, dangerous places, and discretion and trust it is everything. So when that happens to one of us, the effect is it makes it really hard to maintain that relationship, that professional relationship, because it's like guilt by association. Even though these people have known me for a long time and worked with me and trust me, how can they seriously bring me forward to work, on sensitive projects for companies when the first thing the person at HR is going to do is Google me? And I've never been on Google, never been Googleable before all this. The first thing they're going to see is all this stuff about black markets, and they're not going to care if it's true or not. I mean, what professional contact, what company is going to take that risk if it's the black market guy, regardless of what you claim the definition is, or the other one that doesn't have all this stuff attached to it? It's common sense. So
yeah, that's absolutely true. As he says, it's common sense. And as many of you know, I do work in marketing as a day job. And in marketing, your online reputation is everything. We see this all the time. If you have Amazon or if you shop on Amazon, you know this. We always look at the reviews. We see what other people have to say. We look at the reliability. And not only do we look at the ratings, but we make sure that they're verified reviews, and we want to see that there are a lot of reviews. So, yes, your online reputation matters, and because CNN is so big and because so many other news organizations just regurgitate whatever CNN puts out there, Zachary Young's name, his online reputation is tarnished forever. So his the damages, I believe, are beyond a questionable doubt. Now, the next piece of evidence that was submitted by Zachary Young's team is this exchange between two of the lead reporters on this piece, and they are on record saying, hey, your story doesn't align with my story, which should raise red flags, right? If reporters are saying our version of events, our version of the facts don't line up, yet apparently CNN ran with the story anyways. Here is what that exchange looked like.
She tells Marquardt about an Afghan who paid to get out. But when he hears that Afghan didn't pay Zach, Marquardt tells Kornetsky, this story doesn't align with mine, unfortunately. Think about that. Marquardt is willing to ignore real stories about real Afghans because they don't align with the hit piece he's trying to run, where Zach is the villain. Now, Marquardt has zeroed in on Zach as his villain, but in order to make him a villain, he needs to find one of his victims. Unfortunately for Marquardt, he never finds any victim because Zach never charged any Afghan. But he does find a few people that Zach communicated with on LinkedIn. What he learns is that Zach only worked with corporations, the corporations I told you about earlier today. But Marquardt didn't want to tell a story about corporate evacuations. That isn't sexy, it isn't scandal, and it's not what drives eyeballs to the network. Marquardt never really tried to contact the corporations that Zach had successfully conducted evacuations for. Meanwhile, buzz starts building in CNN's headquarters about Marquardt's big piece. Taglines start getting shared a bunch amongst a number of eager employees, CNN employees who are excited about this piece. They exchange topics like extortion of desperate Afghans and a shadowy black market. Amongst all the excitement, CNN's executive vice president says that the story on Zach would make a great story or great piece for the lead with Jake Tapper, CNN star reporter.
So obviously there's a lot to unpack there, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions, but I would just like to remind everyone that this hit piece aired within the context of Biden's failed withdrawal. You would think that a major international network would, I don't know, be focused on what role the president played in this and why we left our allies and servicemen and women behind, why we abandoned an airfield, why we left billions of dollars worth of equipment. You would think that that would be, you know, the story of interest, but no, they were all giddy. They were all excited about this hit piece, perhaps because it distracted from the problems that Biden's administration was facing. Now, all of this time, we've been talking about Zachary Young, we've been talking about the lawyers, but we haven't really talked about Jake Tapper, which is where this story aired. Well, they brought in Jake Tapper for his deposition, and he apparently also testified, and they used Jake Tapper's words against him because Jake Tapper, like the rest of the mainstream media, was gloating over the fact that Fox News had to settle with Dominion, right? There was that case where Dominion sued Fox News, and instead of going to trial, Fox News said, hey, we're just going to settle here. So it's really ironic that Jake Tapper was gloating about that, and then they used his own words against him in court.
Mr. Tapper, I'm going to share with you now a video recording of your presentation at the Ford School of Public Policy.
And I think the question is, if all you care about is clicks and newsstand sales and circulation, and you don't care at all about the truth and the facts, you end up with a settlement with Dominion election system, right? So, I mean, that's... Yeah. There's nothing wrong with wanting people to read your newspaper, wanting people to watch your show, but if all you care about is that, and you don't care about the responsibility, the grave responsibility we have to be fair and to be honest, then you are a cancer on the democracy we have.
Do you still agree with your previous statements?
Yes.
I want to push back on that, Mr. Tapper, because I'm just talking here about whether or not a news organization that tells willful lies is a cancer on society. Can you answer that question?
I mean, you can think whatever you want. The
Ask
state,
for your testimony, Mr. Tapper.
I answered your question. I made a statement about the non-hypothetical, months-long campaign against Dominion voting, against Smartmatic, against all the people that participated in the process in 2020. It was a months-long campaign that was undermining democracy for the benefit of one particular political leader. And that comment I made, and I stand by it, but I don't have answers to extend the metaphor to every single person, organization, and situation in journalism.
That's really rich coming from you, Jake Tapper, especially since it now appears that you and your colleagues were well aware of the plot holes in your hit piece against Zachary Young, yet you chose to run it anyways. Now, to make matters worse for CNN, it turns out that they actually communicated with Zachary Young via text message. Yes, this is all in writing, before they chose to air the hit piece. Now, Zachary Young texted some of the reporters and he warned them against libel. He warned them, he admonished them to stick to the facts and not to, manipulate the narrative like the media so often does. Yet, here is the most ironic part in all of this. CNN's lawyer tried to use those text messages. He tried to use Zach Young being afraid of libel against him. You cannot make this stuff up.
And so isn't it true that you reached out to Katie Bola-Lillis before she ever reached out to you, correct?
That's right.
And you had reached out to her because you had heard that CNN had contacted Bloomberg about you, correct?
That's right.
Katie says, we're actually working on some reporting related to ongoing efforts to help get at-risk Afghans out of the country, and your name came up in a couple conversations we had recently. So I was hoping to ask you a little bit about your operation. Yes, I have heard CNN was asking about me, which is why I connected. I thought perhaps you needed assistance rescuing Afghans. I'd rather not be named in any reporting. And that's what you wrote, correct?
Yes.
And she says it offers you the opportunity to understand what we're working on and make sure we have the story straight and to make your case and keep your name out of it. So she was offering to you the chance to get on the phone, hear about what CNN was working on, make sure they have the story straight, give you the chance to make your case and keep your name out of it, and you did not take her up on that offer, right?
That's correct.
Right.
Again, I don't trust her by this point, so I was concerned, she might be doing a piece on the industry, which would have a negative impact on my business if she's doing some inaccurate reporting. It seemed very suspicious to me. It seemed like she was criticizing the private markets, which maybe she felt should be free, even though the world doesn't work that way. So I was concerned that she could be attacking the industry that I was involved in.
But it's okay to criticize in America, right?
Not if it causes damage and it's false.
If it's true, there's nothing wrong with criticism, correct?
Not as long as it's true.
Right. We live in a country where just because something is tough doesn't mean that it's defamatory, correct?
You're right.
You've already testified that you can't point to anything slanderous in this exchange, and you throw out the word slander, promoting slander in this exchange with Ms. Lillis, correct?
Yeah, it's amazing how it's almost like I had a crystal ball. I hadn't seen the article or the video yet, but that's exactly what she was doing.
Yeah, you hadn't seen the article or the video because they don't get published for 8 days. And you can't point to anything in this exchange, but you're already accusing her of being slanderous, right?
Pretty good at reading people.
Newsflash to David Axelrod, who again is CNN's lawyer. It doesn't matter that there's nothing slanderous in those text messages because Zachary Young isn't suing you over those text messages. He's suing you over what your network aired on TV, what they posted on social media, and what they posted online. The fact that Zachary Young was concerned and cautious that CNN would slander and libel him, I mean, who wouldn't be? Given what CNN has done the last few years, given how the mainstream media has behaved the last few years. I mean, think of it this way. There's been a lot of talk about how the Trump White House, Trump 2.0, might potentially kick out some mainstream legacy media outlets out of the press briefing room and instead replace them with content creators and podcast hosts. Now, let's say because of all of that, the New York Times and the Washington Post decided to do write-ups of content creators and citizen journalists of every shape and size. And let's say they wanted to, just include me in the write-up. You betcha that I'm going to be concerned about how they're going to spin me, how they're going to cover me, because I don't trust the New York Times and the Washington Post to report on my content and my beliefs and my philosophies properly. I just don't. And that's because of the networks. And so for CNN's lawyer to use that concern against Zachary Young is just, it's just beyond low. Now, they brought in, several witnesses, as they do in these cases, and one of them is a retired mayor general, and he he testifies on the stand under oath that because of CNN's hit piece, he wouldn't hire Zachary Young. So again, this is just proof that Zachary Young's business has forever been damaged.
So your testimony for this jury is that if you were still at age 21 and you knew that there was a 16-year-old girl there who was going to get killed or married off, and you could hire Mr. Young to get her out, you're telling this jury that because of the CNN publications, you wouldn't do that?
And that was asked earlier, and I said no. For AA 21, I think there was too much risk of reputation involved.
Because of the CNN publication?
Yes.
So you would let that 16-year-old die or something worse happen to her because of the CNN story?
We try other methods. We're not able to get every single person out of Afghanistan that we wanted, so I think I've answered your question.
Well, before cases like this get to trial, they go through what's called the discovery process, which is essentially the time when both parties try to get access to evidence and information and documents and whatever assets they need to be able to prove their case in court. Well, Zachary Young's team accuses CNN of playing dirty during the discovery process and refusing to turn over key pieces of evidence. Take a look at this.
It's news to CNN that they created these videos. We are at fault for not realizing that they failed to comply with basic discovery obligations. We shouldn't have to audit CNN's websites or its transcripts to make sure that they're complying with basic discovery requests. We're talking about the very segmented issue in this case. I don't understand how Mr. Axelrod gets up and tries to turn around that we did something wrong. They failed to produce the most relevant evidence in this case. Completely failed to do it. And then I'm being told that CNN's failure to provide the most basic and relevant evidence in this case is some fake attempt by plaintiffs to create false equivalency of document destruction. No one said CNN was destroying documents, but it is in our, he disagrees with everything I said. Really? Ask him, Your Honor, please, if he produced the videos to us. Not only that, ask him if after we realized they were missing, when I sent an email to Mr. Axelrod asking for him to produce them then, he told me no, discovery's over. So if it was inadvertent, why didn't he produce them then?
So things got even worse. It appears that David Axelrod tried gaslighting Zachary Young's legal team, and it got so bad that Vel Friedman, the lead attorney on Zachary Young's side, actually said that he felt like he was in Alice in Wonderland because of how CNN behaved during the discovery process.
There's no evidence that this was intentional. If it was in the complaint, we would have produced it. If Mr. Friedman had said at any point, hey, there's another teaser we know about, will you produce it? We would have gone back and looked for it. We didn't know about it. And by the way, all this is a very transparent attempt to create some fake equivalency from this plaintiff who purposely destroyed documents to what CNN did. And there's no equivalency. We have on a public website, there's a transcript from 4 to 5 o'clock that if you knew what you were looking for, you could have found it. We just didn't know it was there.
And I feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland. I mean, CNN didn't know about its own videos. It's news to CNN that they created these videos. We are at fault for not realizing that they failed to comply with basic discovery obligations. We shouldn't have to audit CNN's websites or its transcripts to make sure that they're complying with basic discovery requests. Judge, this is like Alice in Wonderland, what's going on here. Their obligations, their breach, their failure to produce, somehow it's my fault.
We're in Alice in Wonderland. I don't know which character everybody is.
And you saw David Axelrod there accuse Zachary Young of destroying documents. But from what I understand, what he destroyed was, he's working in these conditions, very dangerous conditions of getting people out of lands that are occupied by terrorists. And what he has to do is make sure that the identities of the people are kept safe, make sure that anyone he works with is also kept safe. So it's my understanding that the documents he destroyed were actually like the contact information of people that he works with, or contact information of people that he's helped rescue, just to eliminate that paper trail. Yes, he used encrypted services to communicate, but he also made sure to protect everyone involved. And, you know, that's part of his job. It's not just evacuating people from war zones and other dangerous situations. It's also ensuring that they're safe after the fact, especially, you know, after the Taliban took over. Now, all of this led the judge in the case to chastise both parties, but specifically, he called out David Axelrod, CNN's lawyer, and he told him to his face that his credibility was virtually zero. Take a look at this.
The case has been pending for 2.5 years in my court. And I made a joke, looking back through this transcript, I made a joke of you only have a week and a half to do more discovery in this case, so we finish up the trial, but it seems like everybody wanted to do everything at the last minute without telling the other side that we're going to do this discovery and then accuse the other person of being the bad person. And I said in this transcript, I'm not going to decide the case based on who can sling the most mud at each other and make each other look out to be the worst person. I think it came up in the course of things. This isn't kindergarten. Y'all matriculated from kindergarten a long, long, long time ago. Or at least that's what it says, because y'all have bar licenses. I'm troubled by all of this that happened. The easiest thing and the clear thing I'm doing is I'm permitting you to call Mr. Conway and get him here to testify and rebuttal. But I'm overly concerned with the level of professionalism or lack thereof that's here. I'm overly concerned. I mean, the transcript of what I read, we said at sidebar or when we were arguing after we excused the jury, conflicts, Mr. Axelrod, with the argument you made today to me. The argument you were making and when we were arguing about the document last week, you were suggesting that, oh, we got the smoking gun. This is the crucial document in our case. I don't know how many times I've heard that from both sides in this case. Or the crucial witness. I think every document, the thousands of documents we have in evidence in this case are the crucial documents. But this was being represented as, oh, this just fell out of the sky in our lap, not that we were doing the same thing we're accusing them of being bad people to do. And I take that as a complete insult to me as the court in this case. And you were saying that he completely lied and misrepresented despite the fact he acknowledged that he had a security clearance with Global, which again is another misrepresentation of the court, which supports your argument that you were being made. So right now your credibility with me, Mr. Axelrod, is about none, if you understand that.
I do. I certainly do, and I apologize when you feel that way. I apologize if you feel that I've misled you. That certainly wasn't my intention.
Yeah, well, you said, oh, I never said that. Well, no, you did. So today you said I never said that, but that's what the transcript from last week.
Definitely not a good look. Now, of course, the jury's going to make their decision. It's going to be based on the facts. It's going to be based on the evidence, and it's going to be based on which side made the stronger case. But the fact that the judge presiding over all of this thinks that the credibility of CNN's lawyer is virtually zero, not a good look. That's not the standing you want to have in the courtroom. So things definitely are going very bad for CNN. Now, I have two more clips I want to show you before we wrap up this video. By the way, this is just day 7 of the trial, but the judge went on to explain what defamation is. Now, I cut this a little short just because it's relevant to the final clip that I'm about to show you, but it's not just about what you put out there, but defamation, hey, you learn something new every day, but it can also be an act of omission. And this definition is really crucial.
A defamatory implication can also be created by omitting facts. An omission of fact is defamatory if it creates a false impression that tends to harm plaintiff's reputation, tends to lower him in the estimation of the community, tends to expose him to hatred, ridicule, or contempt, tends to injure him in his business reputation or occupation, tends to deter third persons from associated or dealing with him, or charges that plaintiff committed a crime.
So remember, the defamatory statement that CNN made against Zachary Young was claiming that he was part of the black market, that he was operating illegally, and that he was trying to extort and scam Afghans out of their money. Well, on top of all of that, they also omitted the fact that he actually helped many people escape Afghanistan after Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal. And yes, that includes rescuing an innocent child who was caught up in this terrible situation.
Did you and your team successfully evacuate 3 women for Audible?
Yes.
Did you and your team successfully evacuate 4 women and 1 baby for Bloomberg?
Yes.
Did you and your team evacuate 3 women for Civil Fleet?
Yes.
Did you and your team evacuate 12 women for Hero?
Approximately 12. It might have been 13. I'm just not sure.
Were these successful evacuations of 22 women and a child reported by CNN?
No, they left that out.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, that looks like omission to me. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, all of this looks really bad for CNN. This is just the 7th day of the trial. We don't know how much longer it's going to go. But if I were a betting person, I would bet that justice is going to prevail for Zachary Young. I have a feeling that the momentum and the tides are on his side. Now, predictably, if he wins, the left, the Democrats, they're going to come out and they're going to accuse Republicans of playing politics. They're going to accuse us of being authoritarians and fascists who just want to take down the media, who just want to take down anyone that doesn't paint conservatism in the brightest light. But of course, none of this is about any of that. If they accuse us of that, which I guarantee you they will, it's just false. It's just them projecting their anger at losing, because this is about accountability. If CNN made a false statement, if they knowingly made it, if they made it with malicious intent, and then they ruined someone's life and caused actual damages, yes, there needs to be accountability for that. Yes, there needs to be judgment for that. And by the way, it's not just about CNN. It's about sending, as Zachary Young's lawyer said in his opening statement, it's about sending a message to all of the legacy corporate mainstream media that, hey, you can't get away with this anymore. It's not about shutting them down. It's not about putting them out of business. It's making sure that you actually tell the truth to your viewers. Because quite frankly, that's important. That is why we have the First Amendment. That is why we have freedom of the press. We don't have freedom of the press for you to make money. We don't have freedom of the press so you can get all the clicks you want in the world. We have freedom in the press to hold our government, to hold the powerful to account. We have freedom of the press so that we have an informed citizenry. And quite frankly, our media is failing to live up to that mission, to that promise, and shame on you. But of course, all of this is just my opinion and an analysis. That is my commentary and what is going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So, what do you think about what's been going on in court so far? Are you impressed by Zachary Young's lawyer? And how do you feel about David Axelrod? What do you think the performance is looking like for CNN? And, you know, if it's not too much, if you had to make a prediction, whose shoes would you rather be in right now? Would you rather be in CNN's shoes or Zachary Young's shoes? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.